This is the moment a Nelson County native was laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery some 80 years after his death. James Cheshire was a sailor from New Hope, Kentucky, aboard the USS Oklahoma when he died during the attack on Pearl Harbor. But his remains were never identified until last year, when new DNA technology made the connection. And today, a final farewell to our hometown hero.
I've been to Arlington before, and just being there is moving. Just in honor of what the people who are buried there, what they represent.
Cheshire was Betty Tucker's great uncle, known as Tom to most, but she never knew him or knew he existed until last year. As Brooke Hash tells us, that's when the research began.
He joined the U.S. Navy when he was 18 and made a career of it for the next 22 years.
He had just re-upped in 1940. So had he chosen not to continue his career, he would not have been on board that fateful day.
James Cheshire was a chief pharmacist mate aboard the USS Oklahoma.
He would have been down in the medical area, which was down on the lower decks.
He rendered aid to the injured, serving in the ship's sick bay and at naval hospitals. It's why Betty Tucker says the odds were against him ever escaping the Japanese torpedo attacks on December 7th, 1941.
He really wouldn't have had a chance to get out.
The ship was hit at least 5 times and capsized within 12 minutes. The Oklahoma rolled over and sank to the harbor bottom, with many of the men still trapped in the lower decks, banging on steel walls until they took their last breath.
I thought not only heart-wrenching for those men, but the men who were above the surface who could hear that banging and couldn't do anything about it.
The last communication from Cheshire, possibly this letter he wrote to his son just days before the attack.
And of course, they knew negotiations with the Japanese were stalling. And in retrospect, they wonder if he didn't fear something like this was going to happen.
With more than 1,200 men on board, 429 went down with the ship. Years later, it was righted and the bodies inside recovered. While personal items were sent home to families, the majority of the remains could not be identified.
That was all that they had received until the magic of DNA.
Using samples from several family members, James Cheshire was finally headed to his final resting place.
These guys that died in World War II, I mean, as they say, that's the greatest generation. And he deserves any honor that he gets, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Brooke Hash, WHAS 11 on your side.
James was one of 394 unidentified Oklahoma crew members originally buried in Hawaii. As of last year, DNA analysis has identified all but 48 of them.